Welcome to the Disney Wedding Podcast. This show is brought to you by Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, the only guidebook and bridal organizer tailored exclusively to Disney's fairy tale weddings at Walt Disney World. I'm Carrie Hayward, and each week I feature Disney wedding updates, money-saving tips, and interviews with wedding vendors and real Disney couples. I also cover honeymoons, anniversaries, and engagements at the Disney parks and resorts. Join me now as the Disney Wedding Podcast celebrates romance at Disney destinations. Today on the Disney Wedding Podcast, I am speaking with Alexis and Joel Galasso about their Wedding Pavilion ceremony and their reception at Atlantic Dance Hall at Walt Disney World. I thought you guys would be interested to hear how they chose these locations and how they planned everything and how it all turned out. So welcome, Alexis and Joel.
Hi, Carrie. Thanks so much for having us.
Hello, Carrie. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thanks for being on the show today. I always like to start at the very beginning and find out how you guys decided that you wanted to have your wedding at Disney.
For me, I know a lot of couples who get married at Disney. Disney is such a special part of their life, and it definitely was for me growing up. We were so lucky we were able to go once a year since I was born. And I remember when I was 5 years old, the Wedding Pavilion was being built. And it's on the monorail line. And I remember looking at it as it was being built. And I turned to my dad and I was like, oh, I want to get married there. And he was like, yeah, okay, for sure. And then 30 years later, it became time to get married. And Joel and I have family all over the country and even outside the country. But we have a lot of international relations as well. And so we knew it was going to be some sort of destination wedding. We were living in California at the time, but we didn't have a lot of family there. Joel's family's in Detroit. My family is in Texas and Florida. So we knew it was going to be a destination. And I remember thinking about it for a long time, and nowhere else felt right except Disney World. And Joel had never been to Disney World or Disneyland or any Disney property before he met me. And he was so kind to agree that we could have our wedding at Disney World. And I reminded my dad of that promise that he made 30 years ago that, hey, can we get married at Disney? And he was like, you know what? Let's do it. From there, it was the only place that we looked at. And I was so grateful that Joel decided that it was okay to get married there.
Well, I don't think it was really my decision at the end of the day. It was really about whatever made you happy wife, happy life. I think that's how the saying goes. And for me personally, honestly, I didn't think that I would get to the point of actually getting married to my beautiful wife, or any wife really for that matter. So I was kind of indifferent to where the wedding would take place. It could be at a courthouse, it could be in Las Vegas, it could be at Disney World. And lucky me, it did wind up being at Disney World. So when she made that ask, of course I said yes. It was an easy yes to say because I knew how happy it would make her. And I thought, wow, it's actually a heck of a lot better than a courthouse, I think. So yeah, let's do Disney World. And that's how it happened.
That's awesome. How did your friends and family react when they found out where the wedding was going to be?
Oh, they thought it was absolutely fantastic. Our friends and family were definitely a bit blown away. I mean, her dad, obviously, and her immediate family and whatnot, they weren't super surprised because they were in the loop, pretty much the whole time. And to an extent, so was her mom and her mom's family. But all of our guests were just ecstatic at having that opportunity to get to enjoy such a wonderful day at a place like Disney World. As memorable as Disney World is, as memorable as weddings are, they were just ecstatic to have that incredible opportunity. My family was blown away. They thought it was the coolest thing. My best man is very much a big Disney fan, Disney World fan, and he was bragging to pretty much every single person that he knew that he had the opportunity to not just be a best man at a wedding, but a wedding at Disney World of all places. So yeah, they were blown away by it and super excited to share in our amazing day at such an amazing location.
That's wonderful. How many guests did you invite and how many were able to make the trip?
Yeah, so at the beginning, we knew not everyone would be able to make it, but we did want to make sure we invited as many as we could. I think our LOA was for about 125, and that included plus ones and children. And at the end of the day, I think we had about 67 who were able to show up.
Did you set up a room block for your guests?
We actually did not set up a room block with Disney directly, and just for a few reasons. We knew probably a lot of our guests have their own kind of timeshare situation and would be using their points, for off property. Even the largest part of our family that would be coming is actually in Tampa, only about an hour and a half away. So some of them were just coming for the day, wouldn't even be utilizing a hotel. So we didn't want to worry about having to meet the requirements for a Disney room block and commit to so many and not use them and be on the hook for them. It just seemed like a little bit more worry that we didn't want to have to worry about. So we decided we really still wanted our guests to have a white glove service. So we decided to utilize a travel agent, Melissa Faya. And so she was a good family friend. And so we provided her number, posted on our wedding website to, book with Melissa and she'll have you set up. We did designate 4 different hotels and resorts on the property for folks who wanted to stay on the property. We did try to do one from each of the different price points. So we did Pop Century, we did Caribbean Beach, and then we did Boardwalk for a deluxe because of the location on the Skyliner. I know it's convenient for a lot of guests. And then we also chose the Swan and Dolphin Hotel just because of its proximity with our reception being at the Boardwalk and most of us all staying around the Boardwalk area and on the Skyliner. We also knew that was a really good option for a lot of our guests. So they were still, for those who wanted to stay on property, they still got a really good white glove service working with Melissa, our travel agent. So that way they're able to utilize that. And we still had a lot of family close to us, which is really nice.
That's such a great idea because then she can also answer your guests' questions instead of you two having to be the travel agents and tell them how Disney works.
Exactly. And that was another thing that she really helped with too, is really just, she even got folks who wanted to do like park tickets and even helped with flights. So that was really helpful to have that as a service.
And Melissa was really fantastic because she's also, I think the official title that Disney uses for folks like her is, I think, a magical vacation planner or something of the sort. And she's one of their award-winning independent magical vacation planners. So she knew everything about Disney World like the back of her hand and really helped guide those guests that utilized her and her services to the best possible experience and outcome that they could have. And we were thrilled to have worked with her. And rather than just do a traditional room block, it turned out to be a really nice, personalized, personable option.
That's fantastic. So how did you guys choose the day of the week and time of day for your event?
So we got engaged back in October of 2022. And to start off with, we knew that we didn't want the engagement period to be really more than 2 years. 18 months was already going to be pushing it. So at that 18-month-ish mark, that brought us to roughly around somewhere between March and May. And we really wanted to be considerate of the weather in Florida as well, which after April, May, and on just becomes very, very, very hot and humid, even more so than it already is. So that helped us land on that general springtime. And then once we explored the calendar a bit more, we found that April really seemed to be the perfect month. And then April 20th, it's kind of a fun date. It's a palindrome. It's the exact same thing forwards as it is backward. So, a little nerdy in that regard. It was probably a little bit more my nerdiness than Alexis's. But that date, that Saturday, became the ideal date for us just because, again, in relation to from when we got engaged and the time of year and all that sort of fun stuff, it being a Saturday as well was important to us because we wanted to be as convenient as possible to all of our guests since they were coming primarily from out of town. And then time of day, we knew that we wanted the day to be an experience in and of itself, keyword there being the day. So, not just a later afternoon ceremony followed by a reception and then the end. We wanted it to be an experience that would really run, the entire gamut of almost morning, early afternoon, all the way through evening. So that's when our ideal ceremony time became noon. That was our first pick, was April 20th at noon. And then, of course, for all of our various venues. And we were lucky enough to actually get all of that on our first go. Everything lined up perfectly and we got everything that we wanted. It was great.
It worked out really, really well. And we knew Saturday, we know it's a little bit more pricier when it comes to the venues, but it just was more convenient for our guests, especially they were all traveling. And some weren't going to be able to spend, like a whole week at the parks. Like we know when that happens, it doesn't always matter what day of the week it was, but we know some were only coming for a few days. So Saturday just made a little bit more sense, especially for those coming from Central Florida who were driving in just for the day. Saturday helped. And of course, with the dance hall, we did not have the budget to rent it out for the whole night. So we did have to contend with that be out by, 6, since it is still operable on the weekend. So that's what pushed us to that earlier ceremony time at noon, and then having that reception from 2 to 6.
How did you choose your ceremony and reception venues?
Although I love the outdoors, I trust Florida weather not at all. So I really wanted to pick ones that were inside. Even though there are some really beautiful ones outdoors, wanted to be comfortable for everyone. So in case it is really hot, we're in somewhere cool. And in case it does rain, I don't have to deal with the stress of having to move into a venue that maybe I didn't really like to begin with and wasn't in love with all the rain backup options. So really being indoors was kind of the first criteria. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the Wedding Pavilion was always just something special that I've always looked forward to. I really love the feel of it. It's very elegant, so beautiful in there. It was the perfect size for our guest count. So always wanted to do the Wedding Pavilion. And then when we were looking at the venues, of course, the big options are ballrooms, in park, but I didn't really love the ballrooms. Of course, they're beautiful, but when you walk in there, you could be in any hotel. I really wanted something with that Disney feel. And then, of course, you can spend a lot to dress up a ballroom, but we really wanted to be sensible with our decorations. And so we wanted to pick venues that were already beautiful without decorating. So as we were looking actually through your guidebook, Carrie, we were finding the dance hall to be really, really cool. We loved the vibe. I had been in there, once or twice before, just visits to the park. And I remember it being like just a fun vibe. It's so beautiful. It's got a great dance floor already, really cool seating. And it's it doesn't require any decorations. And that's what we really wanted for our wedding, was just that fun vibe, that party vibe. And so when we looked at it, I remember showing Joel, we're like, that's really cool. And it was really the only venue that we really liked.
That's great. Did you guys use any outside vendors for the portions of your event that you were able to?
We pretty much used outside vendors everywhere we could. So we did bring our own photographer from California, where we were living at the time. Let's Make a Memory with Adrian Ong. He did our engagement photos for us, and we loved them so much. We wanted to bring him out for our wedding. So we were very excited that he was able to come out there for that. And then we also used Merrily Married as our videographers, which we were really excited to use. We know kind of the number one regrets that a lot of couples have is not getting the videographer, not getting the video. So we knew that was a big priority we wanted to get. For hair and makeup, I used Stacey Otto hair and makeup for my hair and makeup. So we were really excited. Heard such great things, and the hype is real about Stacey Otto. She was there at 5:30 in the morning, ready to go. We utilized JLB Papery basically for everything stationery. So from our save the dates, our invitations, our signage, our table numbers, our favorite cards that we had, pretty much everything like that we used JLB Papery for. And then for bouquet preservation, which I know is after the fact, use Mindful Tree Art, which is beautiful, ended up beautiful. We did also want to prioritize a day of coordinator that was outside of Disney, so we used Catherine Martell for day of coordination and for gown and suit steaming the day before, which we were very excited to have. Also, want to mention, just because we spent so much time with them ahead of our wedding, Orange County Wedding Dance Studio to help with our first dance, which was something that was very special to us. And we'll get there when we get to our favorite moments. But we spent about 13 months with Joe and Sarah over at Orange County Wedding Dance Studio to get us the perfect first dance. Neither of us are professional dancers by any means, but they made us look so awesome, and our friends and family loved it. So we were really excited to utilize them. We also utilized Clark and Dagger for our 3D models of our 3 dogs to put on our wedding cake, which came out perfectly, exactly like our puppies in their stance, which was very special to have the 3 of them there.
I did want to take an extra moment to really highlight our photographer again. Let's Make a Memory and Adrian Ong. just for the sheer fact that, again, we used him for our engagement photos out in California where we were living at the time and had an amazing, wonderful experience, and chose to take on a little bit of the extra cost to have him be our wedding photographer. And we could not have made a better, more incredible choice, because I don't think any other photographer, whether it was direct through Disney or any other vendor that we could have found, would have been really as personable, as empathetic, as emotional, let alone just the incredible eye that he and his team have. He became a friend. That's how close our working relationship was. And that's the amazing, wonderful job that he did. And I can't recommend enough for any California couples that are getting married, whether it be in Disneyland or in Disney World. I can't begin to express how wonderful professional he is, how wonderful of a human being he is, and how great of an eye he has as a photographer. And I just wanted to give him that extra shout out because he's amazing.
How did you guys choose your officiant?
So that was also very special because the officiant was my brother. So that was very, very fun because, of course, all those memories with him at Disney of all of us growing up there. And so it was very special. He did such a great job. And we're not particularly religious, Joel and I, so having a pastor or anything like that, we didn't have anyone in mind. And so we wanted to find someone who can make it personal for us. And my brother Ethan was the perfect addition. He did so good, only almost broke down once. Had a little bit of a lip quiver in the middle, but he did so good, and it was the perfect length, exactly what we wanted. And we were so excited when he said yes to being our officiant.
Yeah, and it was really great because I think we asked him at a Chili's or an Outback Steakhouse or whatever it was.
An Outback Steakhouse over cheese fries.
And he was completely blindsided by it in the moment. And it was just really, really fun to have really started our experience with our officiant all the way from well before the wedding at a Chili's. Wow.
Did you add any kind of entertainment to the ceremony or the reception?
We had a DJ. The DJ that we used was
DJ Steve Weinstein.
And he was fantastic. Consummate professional. Had our whole playlist that he had us put together that he played a lot of songs from, was a wonderful MC, really did a great job in getting the crowd pumped up and having a fun, good time. So big shout out to DJ Steve because he was great. We also had a
360 video booth.
A 360 video booth. We didn't want to do the traditional magic mirror, that Disney offers, or just a regular old photo booth. I really enjoyed the concept of a 360 video booth. And for those that don't know what it is, it's a circular platform that you and several other folks ideally stand in the middle of, and sure, you've got your props on and your silly costumes and whatever else. And you're just moving and grooving and having as much fun in the moment as you can for about 20 seconds or so. And a camera is moving at very high speeds in circular motions around that platform, capturing, that 15 to 20 seconds worth of footage in slow motion. So rather than just getting a still photo, instead the guests wound up with, something that they could have on their phone, share on social media, and actually enjoy looking at more than once, hopefully, ideally. Mm-hmm. So that was a heck of a lot of fun as well.
That's wonderful. Do you guys have any menu items or cake flavors that you would recommend?
Without question for cake, the French toast flavor. We really enjoyed our cake tasting that we had well before the wedding, and so many of the flavors were so delicious. But holy cow, that French toast cake with a maple buttercream, I believe it was hands down my absolute favorite, and one I would recommend to anybody in a heartbeat, whether you do or do not like breakfast. The taste of French toast, but on your cake, in your cake, the moment it hits your lips, it was just absolutely wonderful. Also, I do have to recommend as well, Disney, believe it or not, does really good cannolis. We added on cannolis to our dessert party because they weren't, a normal menu option. But we added those on and they were actually really, really good. We also had a donuts flambe station That was really, really exceptional because it gave guests something fun to look at and to see, number one, but then the taste, the flavor was really, really fantastic as well. So those will be my shout outs for cake and for food.
Yeah, we were lucky. We had a 3-tier cake. So we had the French toast with the maple mousse filling. And then we also did the churro with the churro crunch as one of our tiers. And then the funfetti with the white chocolate. All were delicious, and almost all of it was gone. We were actually kind of shocked. I thought we would have a ton of cake left over. We did have a few, but most of it was all gone. For our reception, we did have a buffet dinner just because of the dance hall. You know, they don't have it set up for a sit down, but that was perfect. We wanted a buffet. So we had the braised short rib, which was delicious. Everyone says that with mashed potatoes, seasonal vegetables. We did add the Brussels sprouts, another one of Joel's necessities that he needed to have. And then we also had salmon. And then we did the Impossible loaves for those who are vegan and vegetarian, which we do have a handful in our party that were vegan and vegetarian. So we had the Impossible meatloaf for those who needed it. And then we also did shrimp skewers. We did want to stay away from chicken just because we know that it dries out easily on a buffet. And when we met with our chef at the tasting, which we were grateful to be able to go to the tasting ahead of time, he definitely recommended that and kind of steered us towards what was good for a buffet and what everyone would like, because we did want the highlight, or one of the highlights, to be the food. We know Disney does great food, and we wanted to show that. You know, unfortunately, sometimes we go to some weddings where the food is not great, and we really wanted to show that experience to our guests to have that food, and then brought even more food out at the dessert party. In addition to the donuts flambe, we did the Mickey ice cream BOC, or bill on consumption, with the ice cream cart, which was really fun. We were excited that all of our guests were able to go get a Mickey ice cream bar. And then we also did the cheeseburger spring rolls, which everyone loves. You know, those were gone. The cannolis, like Joel mentioned, disappeared, I think within 30 minutes of them being set out. They definitely went very fast. So those are all the food items that were really popular.
And actually, I've got one more that I forgot about because it was special to us because we enjoyed them so much when we had a vacation at Disney, you know, about maybe a year or so before actually being there at the wedding. So the Yachtsman Steakhouse does a really, really, really delicious roll with a sea salt butter and fresh roasted garlic that you then crush up and, you know, mix together with your butter and put it on that delicious roll. And those are absolutely phenomenal at the steakhouse. And they recreated it pitch perfectly on our reception buffet as well. And those were also a really big hit with our guests and me, because I ate a lot of them.
So you guys did a rehearsal lunch at Yachtsman Steakhouse. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I really wanted to do the traditional kind of rehearsal dinner, rehearsal lunch, and looking through all of the different options for, you know, what's good for a rehearsal dinner. We saw the Yachtsman Steakhouse. It was so cool on the inside. And we saw pictures of it. And on one of our vacations, we did go there together to try it out. And we loved how it looked inside. And they also had the lowest package. And it was during the lunchtime. So we decided to do a 10 a.m. rehearsal at the Wedding Pavilion the day before a wedding. And then just for those in our wedding party, you know, those who are walking down the aisle with us, who we call our VIPs, so our parents and our bridal party, we wanted to treat them to a rehearsal lunch is what we called it. So we decided to pick the Yachtsman Steakhouse, and we were there from 12 to 2 on that day before our wedding. And we just wanted to have a time where we were with our bridal party, with our VIPs, kind of celebrating, thanking them, because we knew it was going to be a long day on Saturday. So wanted to thank them for being there with us and supporting us, because a lot of our bridal party were superstars that whole weekend. They did a lot of things that, we had asked that they didn't need to do, from picking people up at the airport to running to get, folks medicine or Band-Aids from the store, all those types of things. So we really wanted to celebrate them. So we used that time to do so, where we gave out our gifts. And then we also, the project manager and me, wanted to level set with everyone to make sure they knew what they needed to do for the next day, and they knew where they needed to go and what time. So handed out their personalized schedules at that time, and really just took that time to kind of brief with everyone before the big day. And it was such a special time, because we also had the opportunity in our immediate family family, we have 4 birthdays in the month of April. Both of our fathers, the acting mother of the groom, and then my cousin, who is a bridesmaid, all had, within a week of each other, really, April birthdays. So we took that time. The catering staff there was phenomenal, and they made these 4 cupcakes with little white chocolate signs with their names on them that said happy birthday Dawn, happy birthday Emma, and gave it to them during that time. So it was really special because we wanted to acknowledge, especially because my dad's birthday was 4 days after the wedding, and the acting mother of the groom was the day after the wedding. So we wanted to make sure they were celebrated as well. So we were very excited that we were able to do that.
And the staff was absolutely fantastic there as well. The seating chart was super easy to manage because it's, a normal restaurant. They were pretty good about, as needed, to slightly rearrange the tables for us and whatnot. And it was because it's spaced and seated like a regular restaurant. There really wasn't much rearrangement needed because you had 2 tops around 4 tops and 6 tops and all that sort of stuff all nearby. So really convenient in that regard. And the food as well was phenomenal. We did a nice, simple, classic Italian menu, and folks really enjoyed it. So all in all, it was a really, really fun experience. And I do, even a year later, want to give a shout out to my wife and her mentioning she is a project manager professionally, and people were blown away and amazed and also had a good laugh over her with her clipboard and personalized checklists and itineraries for all of our wedding party. It was a really fun experience, having such a lovely venue to get to explain to everyone what was in store for the day ahead, and having the support of the staff was really, really great. And it was a really, really wonderful experience.
That's fantastic. Can you tell my listeners a bit about your dessert party and whether you did a ride mix-in?
We did a dessert party the same day as our wedding. So when our reception ended at 6, we did a dessert party at Italy Isola. And that's because it was the best location, we felt, especially accommodating our party size. And of course, with Joel being Italian, it just made sense to do it in Italy. And we love having that, kind of little private island that's right there. So we did that between 7 and 8:30, which I think was the highlight for all of our guests. Unfortunately, we did not do a ride mix-in, and I'm actually kind of glad that we didn't, just because at the end of the night, I could tell that our guests were very tired. It had been, the whole day, from the ceremony to the reception and then to the dessert party. So kind of glad that we didn't and folks could go home, because that might have been a little too much for some of our guests who had been up, especially the bridesmaids who've been up since 5 in the morning. Definitely would have been a long day. And just, with the budget, would have loved to do a ratatouille, ride mix in, but just wasn't in the budget. We decided to focus on some other things for our budget. But definitely the fireworks show was amazing, the luminous. We were really excited to be able to do that, and the photos that we got from it were fantastic. And we have so many around our house that we just love to look at all the time.
And we still have folks even today that talk about that dessert party and about the fireworks and just how amazing that portion of the experience was. It really, no pun intended, but it really blew people away. It blew us away too. I mean, to share, the conclusion of such an amazing, momentous day with such a gorgeous show that really felt like a private fireworks show because of the location of Italy Isola and the space that we had to view and experience and enjoy everything. It was really, really unforgettable for us, and I think for the majority of our guests too. So yeah, the dessert party at EPCOT was wonderful.
That's so great. So can you give my listeners a timeline of how the wedding day all fit together?
Yeah, so I'll start off because the girls were first. So my alarm went off at 4 a.m., but of course I woke up at 3:50, ready to go. So hair and makeup, Stacy came around 5:30, and then Jen and Lindy from her team showed up around 6, and they were doing the hair and makeup for the bridesmaids. And then Stacy did hair and makeup for myself and my mom. So from about 5:30 to about 9:30 is when we all did hair and makeup for all the girls, and myself and my mom. And then the gentlemen, I think, started around 8 a.m.
Yeah, about 8 a.m. I think I personally was up around 6-ish myself to get myself ready. And then all of the guys started showing up between 7:30 and 8 or so. And then our videographers and photographers also started showing up between 8 and 8:30 to do all the guys getting ready first, because we're not nearly as important as the bridal party. So they want to knock us out, real quick and easy.
Right. And I guess to note, Joel and I, we were staying in separate places and actually on the separate side of the resort land. So Joel was in the Boardwalk Villas where we were staying, and Joel and the groomsmen were over there. And then the ladies and myself were in the Bay Lake Towers in one of the 3-bedroom villas, which we were very excited to get. So we were kind of on opposite sides of the Disney World. So that's why they decided the videographers and photographers went there first. I got some really great pictures of Joel in his getting ready outfit. And then around 9:30 is when the videographers and photographers showed up at the ladies' suite in Bay Lake Towers and did our interviews and our photos till about 10:30. And then at 10:30 is when the limo picked myself and the ladies up to go over to the Grand Floridian, where we did pictures at the Grand Floridian. I actually did a first look with my dad, which was very special to be able to do that. And of course, pictures with all the bridesmaids, pictures in the lobby, the staircase, which was so fun to do. And then during that time, the limo went back to the boardwalk to pick up Joel and the groomsmen and his dad and brought them over to the Wedding Pavilion. So this is around 11:15-ish that he was over there. And then after they dropped them off, then it came back and got me at the Grand Floridian and took the rest of us, including my dad, back over to the Wedding Pavilion. And I was in the bridal suite around 11:30. And so we're waiting in there until noon when the ceremony started. And I remember I was so worried about the timing, which was perfect. Throughout the whole day, we were on time for everything. But I remember sitting there and I'm like asking someone, what time is it? And they're like, it's 12:01. I'm like, okay, well, why are we not going? Let's go. Well, let's do this. But Disney was on it. So we did our ceremony at noon. Lasted about 20 minutes. I think we were walking back down the aisle literally at 12:20. We went out to the picture point to take pictures there with the castle in the background while our guests lined up on the Infinity Bridge and did a pedal toss. And we did that staged exit with our limo. And then we had shuttles. I forgot to mention this. We did have shuttles that picked up at each of the 3 resorts. So at Pop Century, Caribbean Beach, and actually at the Swan and Dolphin, picked up all of our guests there and took them to the Wedding Pavilion, and they were in place around 11:30 as well. And so we had, after our staged exit, that same shuttle took those who were not going to take family photos with us over to our cocktail hour, which we had at the St. James's room at the Boardwalk Inn. And so that started around 12:45. Guests were there to do cocktail hour, and then we did our family photos from about 12:30 to 1, and then the shuttle came back, picked up the rest of our family, and took them back over to the Boardwalk Inn to finish up cocktail hour, and then Joel and I did our photos from 1 to 1:30 around the Wedding Pavilion, which was very fun. And then we got in the limo came back for us. We got in the limo and it took us right to the boardwalk, and then we walked in. We had a private first dance at the dance hall. So we got there around 1:50-ish. So we had a private first dance, which was perfect. We got to practice that. And then got my veil taken out, got all bustled, and then guests started walking in around 2:10. And so got everyone settled at their tables, and then we were announced around 2:30. And we all came down the stairs to the announcement, and then we went right into our first dance. Joel did his welcome speech. And then we wanted to do photos with all the tables. So I think a lot of couples are starting to do this now, but we decided we wanted to do this because this was very fun. We had DJ Steve play Don't Stop Me Now by Queen. And during this whole song, we had to run around to all the tables and take pictures with them before the song ends. So that was really fun. It was a great way to get pictures with everyone. We wanted to do that before food was served, so there wasn't like random plates of food in the background or empty plates or dirty plates, anything like that. So we did that to get pictures with everyone. So we're running around like crazy to get those. And then opened up the buffet. Everyone started eating around 3 o'clock. And then as we finished around 3:20, we started with the speeches. So Joel's dad, my dad, of course, my sister, the maid of honor, and Joel's friend, his best man, did all their speeches. Then we did the dances, Joel with the acting mother of the groom and myself with my dad. And then we opened it up for dancing, I think right at 3:45-ish. And the photo booth was already going in full swing. And then we did not stop the music for the cake cutting. We just wanted to do a private moment. We didn't want to stop the dancing because we wanted the party to continue. So we did that, but most folks who were right there stopped and watched us anyways, which is fine. We cut our cake and then served the cake. And then Joel slipped away to do his groom separate in his groom's outfit, since he wasn't able to do that in the morning prior to getting ready. So they did his groom singles, and then Joel and I slipped out to do a few more photos up on the second level of dance hall, and then of course in the front to get our names on the marquee. So we wanted to get our picture with that. So we did a few on the boardwalk, then came and finished dancing the night away until 6 when we left. And then Joel and I actually separated to change into our dessert party outfits. And we actually did, I guess we could say, a second first look. We didn't do a first look originally, but we wanted to do a first look in our dessert party outfits. So around 6:40, we met outside the Boardwalk Hotel, the Boardwalk Inn, at one of the main staircases there, and did a first look where I came down the staircase and turned around, and then took pictures there, and then took pictures as we were walking to the dessert party. We met at the International Gateway entrance of EPCOT. We just had all of our guests meet there instead of doing the shuttle that I know goes to the back lot, and that was also just to save on budget. But it worked out really well. All of our guests were there on time. No one missed the boat. So that was great. So we took pictures and videos of us walking down the boardwalk and meeting our guests at International Gateway. And then we walked in right at 7 o'clock to go to our dessert party, walk through EPCOT to Italy. And then we were there for our dessert party. And then I think the fireworks started around 8 p.m. So then, of course, we were able to mingle for that first hour. And then, of course, we were kind of whisked away to that bridge that goes to Italy Isola to do all of our pictures. That was a fun experience because we were posing and Nick and Prince from Merrily Married were just yelling out directions at us at what to do. Kiss, hug, sway, pretend to dance. And that was fun. So we got that. And then everything wrapped up around 8:45. And then we all walked out to EPCOT and we all went on our merry way. And that was the timeline. Joel, did I miss anything?
Nope, that was the entire timeline. You missed nothing. Good job.
Okay, so for each of you, what ended up being your favorite memory of your wedding day?
For me, it's funny. I was thinking as I finished up the wedding day, like, what will be my favorite memory? And it's very hard. There's not like one big standout memory. It's like so many mental pictures that I took throughout the day. And so I think I boiled it down to a few, both with Joel and without Joel by myself. Definitely probably one of my favorite moments without Joel is waking up at 3:50 in the morning. And I was in the bathroom, and this is one of those fancy hotel rooms that has the TV on in the bathroom. And so I had it on the Disney cartoons that are on at 4 in the morning. And I remember just brushing my teeth, getting ready. And I'm like, I'm in Disney brushing my teeth for my wedding, and I'm watching Mickey Mouse cartoons. This is the best day ever. Like, I just remember that being such a special moment because it definitely brought me back to my childhood. The moment in the bridal suite before you walk down the aisle where it's just me and my dad was a very special time. And then, of course, with Joel, doing our first dance that we practiced so hard on. And then our kind of second first look, I like to say, probably my two favorite moments.
And for me, I'm also going to cheat and pick a couple of moments, both with Alexis and on my own. And with Alexis, I'm torn, so I guess I'm really going to pick 3 moments all in. That she surprised me when she walked down the aisle, being played on the organ in the Wedding Pavilion. She walked down the aisle to one of my absolute favorite songs by my favorite musician. It was the song Falling Slowly by a group called The Swell Season, which is fronted by an Irish singer-songwriter named Glenn Hansard. Sorry, I'm getting very fanboyish saying that all out loud. But I had no idea she was going to walk down the aisle to that song. And it's a very, very sweet, emotional song. And seeing her, in her dress for the very first time, which is already heightened emotions with that alone, let alone then to a song that means the absolute world to me. That's something that I will absolutely never forget. Also with Alexis, our first dance it was nerve-wracking. It was a lot of different things, but it was unforgettable. It was so much fun. It was a great time. I didn't throw out my back, which was amazing because at one point, I had her up in my arms doing a spin or a twirl or whatever the heck you want to call it. And getting the chance to do that. And me, I'm not the most coordinated person in the world. So having that experience with her in front of, 60 some odd people watching us, that was definitely a wonderful, unforgettable memory. And then the final one that I'll share that was just more for me was my getting ready. So in the morning, number one, I had a getting ready outfit. That's why I had my getting ready suit photos taken later, because I had a very, what I could describe as almost like a Hugh Hefner Invisible Man-ish type red faux velvet, like smoking jacket and satin pajamas and whatnot. I'm a character, in case you can't tell. And I even had a pipe. I don't smoke a pipe, but I had a pipe too. I had my velvet slippers and all that. So I had all that get up, which then as the guys all arrived and saw me in that, I got my chops busted plenty about that, which was part of the point, part of the fun. But that experience with all of them was that particular group of gentlemen had never all been together before in the same place at the same time. It was kind of a mixing and marriage of many different worlds and times in my life. And to share that experience with all of them was really something that I will most definitely never forget. And it was just so funny too. There were so many laughs, which I'll talk a little bit more later on in some advice I'll give to couples and to the guys in particular about their wedding day. But yeah, that was really a wonderful memory that I will never forget.
And I think one more I forgot to add, which was without Joel. And I know many other brides have shared this one, but it was special to me. And I know others have experienced this, but in the Grand Floridian, walking back out after taking the pictures before the wedding and walking towards the limo and, holding my dress up, and someone shouts out, a little girl, like, "Oh my gosh, it's Cinderella. I see Cinderella." And at first I didn't hear, and the Disney coordinator that was helping me was like, "Oh, did you hear?" And I was like, "Oh, this is my life goal achieved of being a Disney princess." I checked that off the list.
So when you guys were planning, what were some of the most important aspects of the event where you focused your attention or your budget?
The number one for me, and it's one that I kind of took charge of as well, was videography and capturing the experience. So our videographers, again, were Nick and Prince with Merrily Married. Fantastic gentlemen, great professionals, a heck of a lot of fun, too. And they also know Disney like the back of their hand as well. They got married there themselves. They've done numerous or countless Disney weddings, and they were just really great. But, one of the add-on services that they offer, in addition to, the normal wedding package you can pick, you can also add on a wedding documentary. And I chose to add that onto our package, and that became very personal to me because, and this is not by any means to harp on anybody's wedding videos and videographers and so on, but very often when you do look back at someone's 15 minutes best of video or highlights video or whatever, what have you, they're all typically fairly generic isn't really a fair word to say, but they usually all encompass the same thing, the same basic vibe, and capture the same beats and moments and so on. And there's nothing wrong with that by any means, but I am someone who really wants to capture a true sense of what a day like our wedding day was, who we are as people, who our guests are, and also giving our videographers a chance to flex their creative muscle as well. So with that documentary that I took on with Nick and Prince, I told them that I wanted it to be in the spirit of mockumentaries like The Office and Parks and Recreation, Abbott Elementary, things like that, and all the way down to having what's called a cold opening credits, with a cast list, introductions of who everybody is, with a theme song and all that sort of stuff. And I gave them that and a few other small directions, and then I let them know, hey, take that ball and just run with it. And holy cow, did they ever, because the way they advertise their documentary service is it's supposed to be a 45-minute cut. That includes like some talking head interviews and things like that, as well as more of a broader look at the day. And when all was said and done and they returned that documentary to us, it came in actually at 76 minutes. Reason being, and I guess I'm going to get a little bit ahead of myself here, but out to couples out there listening to this, because they felt empowered to really just have fun with it and to let their creativity fly. They really did and gave us a product that we not just because it was our wedding, but we still will randomly just turn it on and watch moments in it because it makes us genuinely laugh. And other people too, the same way, that they'll just watch it. They'll watch a few minutes of it and just have a giggle because it was so well put together. So that was one of my biggest focuses. The other two things, number two, and Alexis might echo this, was just making sure that our guests felt like they were all engaged and having fun. We didn't want people to feel weighed down by the fact that, wow, we're at Disney and this wedding, oh my gosh, this thing must be so expensive and everything just needs to go right and perfect and well. And sure, it did. It needed to. I mean, I want my wife to be happy. But the focus was to have fun. And everything that we did was all in the name of ensuring that our guests did have a good time and they did have fun. So, from the venue choices, especially for the reception, I mean, it's in the name, the Atlantic Dance Hall. We just wanted to be very thoughtful and mindful about the experience that our guests had, because yes, it was our wedding and it's about us, but it's also a celebration of everyone that's with us as well. So that was our second big focus, was just making sure that our guests were well taken care of, and most importantly of all, that they had fun. And I would say the third focus as well was, of course, the logistics of everything, was making sure that the day went off with as close to as not having any hitches as possible. And I do have to give a shout out to the Disney wedding coordinators, that they really did a phenomenal job with making sure the day just hummed along in perfect concert with the meticulous plans that my better half laid out. So having those logistics, especially when you have all the getting ready things, you have a wedding ceremony, cocktail hour, a reception, a dessert party, transportation involved for parts of that, it's a lot. So focusing on those logistics and making sure that everything operated in swan theory, to where it looked very graceful and effortless on the surface, but underneath, man, were those little swan feet just a kicking. So that was probably the third most important thing to me, was doing everything I could to also help and assist with making sure the day just flowed. Although I'll give the lion's share of credit for that over to Alexis.
Yeah, with having our guests have a top-notch experience, we also wanted to make sure the wedding was personal to us. So we really prioritized those personal touches, and we did that with our decorations that we did kind of DIY, specifically with our table numbers. We love dogs. We've had 3 puppies. So with getting those miniatures done with Clark and Dagger to put on our wedding cake, we also did instead of like traditional favors, we did favor cards, where we did a donation to Best Friends Animal Society and had JLB Papery do illustrations of our 3 dogs, since all of them are rescues. We did, for our table numbers, we actually did the Disney dogs. So each Disney dog was a different table number. And then what was actually a really big hit, and even the cast members who were serving, our banquet captain and all the waiters and waitresses and servers who were there really loved this. I had JLB Papery make us, instead of a traditional kind of seating chart, we had them make name tags in the same style, just like a cast member's name tag who works at Disney World. So the way that it worked is it was in the same shape, and at the top, where kind of like the Mickey emblem is, we had the dog that corresponds to what table number they're at. So table number 1 is Pluto, so it would have the guest's name in the name tag, and at top it would say table 1 Pluto, so they knew exactly where they needed to go. I didn't actually expect them to wear those name tags throughout but everyone did. All the guests did, and the cast members who actually work at Disney loved it. They thought it was the coolest thing, and so really wanted to give our guests as much to take home as possible, so they could remember it. So we really prioritized those kinds of details putting our personal touch on it with our small decorations like that. We had an in memoriam table at the welcome table too. My mom actually put my shoes from when I was 12 months old and went to Disney for the first time on that table too. So just personal touches like that we wanted to include for us. So it was really showed how much of us we put into the wedding as well and how much we wanted to make our mark. And then, yeah, like Joel mentioned, the guest experience, having those shuttles, making it very easy for where everyone needed to be and when. So no one was kind of like, I don't know what to do next, or sitting there kind of bored. Really wanted everyone to feel engaged and happy during the time.
Got it. Were there any aspects that were less important where you saved your money or your effort?
Yeah, so we did not focus too much on decorations, and that's why we picked the venues that we did, because they don't need that much in way of decoration. We were very minimal. For example, our centerpieces, actually the table number was the centerpiece, and then around it we just put some loose blooms and leaves. We did those Mickey head rose silhouettes in the little glass vases with the light up beads that are in there for the smaller tables. And then that was it for reception. We didn't do much else for decorations. And then of course in the wedding pavilion, we just had our personal floral. The only thing we did splurge on was the aisle floral. We did the petal swirls down the aisle, and then we did have a altar piece that doubled as our sweetheart table garland. So we had that moved from our ceremony to our reception. And then we actually reused those Mickey silhouette rose heads in the glass vases for our dessert party cocktail tables. So those lit up. So for the outside in the dark, those were there. And that was really it for decorations. We kept the base level chairs, the tablecloths that come with it, because they're, beautiful. We really didn't splurge on that type. We wanted to really focus our budget on the experience with the food, the 360 photo booth, and things like that. We did not do any of the character, although that would have been awesome to have Mickey and Minnie come, or to do the ride mix in. We wanted to really spend the time with our guests. And we know for those who wanted it, they were going to go to the parks and they would have gotten it there. But we decided to focus really on the food, those kinds of aspects that we knew everyone would enjoy, and kind of move from there.
A lot of our budget did go into having a bit more of a, premium food menu at the reception and whatnot, because, it's all about how you make people feel, especially in their bellies. So that's why, one of the reasons why, we didn't really think that it needed to be a priority to have, super deluxe chairs and centerpieces that actually block your sight lines of the people that you're sitting around and things like that. So, yeah, Alexis summed everything else up perfectly, I would say.
Did anything go wrong or just not turn out like you expected?
This is probably going to be a pretty surprising answer, but with the exception of one small thing that I'll bring up in just a moment, the day was about as perfect of a day as you could ever want. And I'm not just saying that because I'm, looking back through rose-colored glasses at our wedding day, but truly everything from morning through night, through the very end, through the very last firework, went off, to use the term again, without a hitch. It was kind of amazing in hindsight at just how much could go wrong and how much really did not go wrong. The only thing that was a little bit off was for the vegetarians and vegans that we mentioned earlier. We had to prompt our wait staff, who overall was phenomenal, our banquet staff, that is, rather, and the reception, to make sure that our vegetarians and vegans were given their special meals. And maybe a person or two, ultimately didn't get their entree, which is a little unfortunate in hindsight. But that being said, 99.98% of everything else went phenomenally. And again, I do want to give a shout out to the coordinators, to the banquet staff, to the shuttle drivers, to everybody that really made our day just hum along. Again, Swan Theory, beautiful, beautiful experience with so many people working behind the scenes to make it look as effortless and wonderful as it all really appeared to be.
That's fantastic. Was there anything that seemed like a big deal beforehand or you were worried about and then it turned out not to be?
I was worried about the timing, just because especially in between our ceremony and reception, we had such a tight timeline for photos, and I wanted, since we weren't doing a first look, making sure we got all the photos that we wanted, which was absolutely perfect. And I think that came down to being very, very crisp with a list of these are the shots I want to get. Let's do it. And that's where our photographer was amazing, and he got everything that we wanted. And we weren't, late at all, which was great. We were able to get everything in. I was worried about the transportation piece just because I've heard, mixed reviews. Some couples have had a lot of challenges with Disney transportation and the buses coming on time, but it looked like everyone was there, and we've never heard that there was an issue. So I think everything ran on time. I was also, like Joel mentioned, I was absolutely blown away by the Disney wedding coordinators and the coordinators from the planning aspect, from meeting with them to the day of. I've heard also mixed things. Sometimes they, don't really care about you as a couple and they focus on the venue, which I get. So I was actually kind of prepared for that. And, that's why we had Catherine Martell, who was absolutely fantastic and executed everything that we needed. And then the Disney wedding coordinators, they actually were very much involved with us. They were texting us the whole time. They absolutely executed everything on the BEO, to a T, exactly the way that we wanted it. They actually did my bustle, which I was not expecting. I was expecting my mom was going to have to come and do it. They were very hands-on with us and did everything that we asked, and did everything on the BEO. So I was very, very happy. I think it was Noelle, Ariel. They were amazing on everything that they did with us.
Is there anything you would have done differently knowing what you know now?
I don't really think so, with the exception of knowing that we could have prompted the banquet staff to make sure the vegetarian meals made it out to our folks. With the exception of that, no. And I think Alexis and I are both in pretty darn good alignment about that fact that everything was just such a wonderful experience overall. There were no real, learning moments or in hindsight moments in terms of the planning and the logistics and the execution and all that sort of stuff. It was great all around.
Do you have any other tips or advice for future Disney couples?
Yeah, so similar to what I know a lot of couples have said on the podcast, go in doing your research. When you go for your first meeting with Disney, know what you want. And it's okay if you don't, but, start to really put together a plan of, what you want, because they're great. They don't do a good job sometimes with ideas unless you ask them directly. So definitely utilize Carrie's guide. Do download that and go through all of that to really understand, what you want. And it's okay if you have like a couple different ideas. That's great. And then always ask, because the worst they can say is no. But always ask for what you want, because it is your day and you don't get to redo it. So you want to make sure you have what you want so you don't have any regrets by putting it out there. I also want to be kind of real on the emotional level. I definitely personally, as a bride, treated this wedding, especially with Disney, and I've heard this feedback from many other couples who have done this too. I definitely treated this wedding all the way up until the day before as a project, which meant I kept it very businesslike. I kind of did not put any emotion into it from a planning perspective. I kept it very much, this is a project. We're going to do this milestone, accomplish this task. We're going to make this list. Okay, did we meet this deadline? Great, great, great. Because I didn't want to stress myself out ahead of time. I wanted to focus on the planning aspect of it, have it be really good. I didn't want to, be very nervous about it or stressed out about it or overwhelmed. And that worked really well. However, I think I should have allowed myself a little bit more emotional outlets to allow myself to maybe feel a little bit of stress or a little bit of overwhelm, and allowed myself to maybe have some emotional moments before, because I did have a few mild panic attacks, I would say, the day before and the day of my wedding, which were no fault of anyone's and nothing going on by any means. Nothing went wrong. It was just my own personal, I was so emotional because I had kind of bottled it up for this whole, 18 months of planning, that by the time it was time, it was so emotional, it kind of overran. So definitely allow yourself and be fair to your partner, because they're probably going to get the brunt of those emotional outbursts, which Joel did and handled like a champ. So you want to make sure, to allow yourself that time during that planning. If you're like a typical Disney couple, you probably have 16 months that you're doing this, sometimes even longer. I know a lot of couples, wait until that 16-month mark to do that's when you can first contact Disney to start that planning. Use every single day of that 16 months to do something little for your wedding. And that way at the end, you've accomplished all these things and you don't have to rush through it. I found that to be really helpful. Obviously, I know that's not for everyone, and so you do what works best for you from a planning perspective, but really treating it like the marathon that it is instead of rushing to do all the things at once, I found really helpful. And then also allow yourself some time to kind of maybe back away from it, spend some quality time with your partner so you don't have those emotional outbursts the day of and the day before your wedding. So when you're nervous or freaking out, you actually have kind of worked on yourself a little bit and you're not as emotional. Maybe that's something that's just for me, but if there's any other brides out there that might be like that, I found that really helpful. If I've had those emotional outlets before, maybe I wouldn't have had those panic attacks that I really didn't need to have the day before and the day of our wedding.
And I would say, to add on to that, the Disney team did do an amazing job with our wedding. And I do at the same time think that, and to kind of echo some things Alexis said a moment ago, it's also about what you put into it as well. That if you come to the table, all the way from the very beginning of whether that's when, you're, bidding for your days or you're tasting or whatever it may be fully engaged, be ready with questions, have an idea or know really what you want or options of things that you want, because the Disney team, the Fairy Tale Weddings coordination team, they're in the hospitality business and they're going to give you a certain baseline of hospitality. But if you come to the table showing them that, yeah, you want that baseline and then some, that you have a darn good idea of the way you want your special day to go, I think more often than not, they're going to rise to the occasion and will meet your expectations. If you go into it with more of the mentality of, these folks do it all the time, this is what we're paying them for, you may not get the experience that's going to be as smooth and as wonderful as you would hope for. Not to say you're not going to have an amazing Disney wedding, but if you want it to be everything that you want it to be, then you really do need to put a lot of yourself into that entire process, and take it serious from the very beginning. Guys, all the guys out there, yeah, sure, maybe, stereotypically a lot of it you'll put into your wife's hands or whichever side of the couple you'll put it into, your partner's hands. Take ownership and engagement in yourself too. Be an active participant. Ask for things to do, tasks to accomplish. Give your input, give your thoughts. Don't be shy about it, with your partner, because it's your special day too. Whomever it is that's taken sort of, the back seat, so to speak, of the overall planning. Be engaged, be thoughtful. And do the things that your partner asks you to do, because believe you me, it really pays off in the end for everybody, most of all you, but everybody really. And the other, I guess, kind of more practical, emotional advice that I'll give is, and probably kind of cliche, stereotypical advice, but it is your only wedding day, ideally, hopefully, in a perfect world. Live in that moment. Be present on the actual day. It's going to be an absolute whirlwind, and do everything you can to just stay engaged and to be there. You're going to get torn in 5 million different directions, and that's okay. But remember that you are there to celebrate yourselves, you and your partner, your friends and family, and really capture that, hang on to it, enjoy it as much as you possibly can, because believe you me, that day will go by in the blink of an eye, and then that's it. Then you're having to rely on your 76-minute documentary to walk you back through just how wonderful and amazing of a day that it really was.
Well, Joel and Alexis, I think you've offered a lot of great tips and advice for anyone who's interested in getting married or having a vow renewal at Walt Disney World, and I appreciate your taking the time.
Thanks so much, Carrie. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you so much for your time.
That's our show for today. I'm your host, Carrie Hayward, inviting you to join me again next week for another episode of the Disney Wedding Podcast. Past shows and tons of photos for each episode are available on my website, DisneyWeddingPodcast.com, or listen in your favorite podcast app. And for instant answers to all your Walt Disney World wedding questions, check out Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, available as an interactive ebook with continual free updates at fairytaleweddingsguide.com.